Hi everyone and welcome to Apprenticeish, where we talk all about apprentices, apprenticeships, kind of. Today we're going to be talking about 5 mistakes to avoid during your apprenticeship interview. I'm looking down because that's what my notes are, and without further ado, I am also a 4th year solicitor apprentice, and without further ado, let's get right into the video. Okay, so the reason why this video came about is number 1, because one of you guys commented, and number 2 is because I recently did some mock interviews at my college, and it was just some of the things that I noticed that were either being repeated or that people didn't realize that they were doing, so I thought that this would be helpful. The first mistake to avoid whilst you're, doing your apprenticeship interview is to add a personal touch.
Oh, sorry, that's not the mistake. The first mistake, oh my gosh, Alika,
is to not sound too curated. I'm talking specifically to my overachievers. I am like that. You're doing a lot of things. You're a part of 10 clubs. You've started 15 organizations, you've done your EPQ, your SQE, your 1, 2, 3, and you actually have really good experience. So sometimes I don't think too perfect, but there's no personal touch to it. So it's fantastic that you're doing all of these things, and you should be talking about your experience, and you should be talking about the things you're doing, because they won't know unless you tell them why you're a great candidate. We on the same page? Great. So you do need to say these things, but the way in which you say it, feel free to add a personal touch. Talk about your hobbies. Talk about the things you like to do on the weekend. Number 1, you're a person. You don't just work all the time. You're not a robot. Maybe you like drawing. Maybe you started a drawing society. What I tend to find with I don't want to say stronger candidates, but people who do, really well in interviews, they will link, or they'll talk about some of their hobbies and then they'll link it to something that's related to the firm. So for example, or the company. So for example, if it was a journalism apprenticeship, you could say, yeah, I really like drawing, I like doing art, and I also really like filming things on my phone. And, me and some of my friends, we've created this group about finding local things in the area that haven't been spoken about in the local newspaper. I may be exaggerating, maybe this is something you've done, maybe it's something you haven't done, but something a bit, just who are you as a person? Because you're going to be working in a team, and teams are not just do this, this, and this, and don't do this, and don't do that. It's key. What did you do on the weekend, Sally? Do you get what I mean? So there needs to be a personal touch to your interview. Okay? We want you to talk about the great experience, but we also want to know who you are. I say we as if I'm the employer. Let's take 3 steps back, Leaks. The second thing is your body language. So, especially if you're a bit nervous, you can do a lot of fiddling, do that under the table. Okay, it's distracting. You can be touching your hair. If you really need to, put your hands under your legs. I do that sometimes when I film my videos, because I do a lot of hand movements. Or put them in between your thighs so that you don't move them around as much, because that's a tad distracting as well. Want to make sure that you have good eye contact with the person that you're interviewing. The person I was interviewing with actually made a really good point, and they said that when you maintain good eye contact, not intense, okay, you're not staring into somebody's soul, but you are appreciating that I'm here, you here, and what you're saying is important. And he was saying that it builds up trust. When you're maintaining eye contact, I feel like I can trust you more. If your eyes are looking left, right, and center, I was saying, yeah, I really want to go into law because I really love the corporate aspects of business acquisition and mergers. I really enjoy how professional it is. I think the amount of legal research that needs to be done is, just really fantastic. And so I also, do you see the issue? You're not locked in. Your posture, you want to sit up. I feel like sitting up actually just makes you look more confident and, feel more confident. I am here and you can see me here too. Try to sit up, take a deep breath. And, when you sit down, you're slouched and you physically make yourself small, you might be nervous, you might be more of an introvert, and that's completely fine. But when you are sitting in front of said 2, 3, 4, 5 people doing this interview, You deserve to be there because you passed through all of these hoops that they've set up for you to jump through. So own the space. Own the space. You're there for a reason. And if you don't get it, then you'll learn. Translate that into your body language. Hi, my name is Lika. Smile. All of that kind of stuff builds up just a very positive image of who you are. Third thing to avoid is poor verbal communication. This one I do think actually requires quite a bit of practice. Just your volume. Sometimes it can be really hard to hear people. Being able to talk in a way that is assertive, that can depend on your language, but I think just simple things like your volume. Don't talk
too quickly.
Don't rush the person who's asking you the question. Let them finish the question. Slow down. If you need a moment to think, then just say, that's a really good question. Take a sip of your water whilst you're thinking. And then if you're still struggling to think of an answer, talk through your mental process, because sitting in silence, unless you have an answer coming up in the next 10 to 15 seconds, can get kind of awkward. Although it does kind of give the person that you're who's interviewing you some time to continue writing out their notes. Yeah, if you don't have an answer, so they could ask you, and what do you think about the technological changes that are happening in the AI space, and how do you think that will impact the future? That's a really good question. I'm exaggerating. Well, I think it's a really good question, because if you think about how AI was created and what it was intended to do, X, Y, and Z, but now looking at the current climate post-COVID, because I do think that has a significant impact on people's relationship with technology because of X, Y, and Z reasons. And I also think if we're looking at it from a future perspective, X, Y, and Z, do you see what I mean? You don't have a specific conclusion just yet, but until you get there, let's communicate and get to the answer. Okay. People tend to be very nervous in the beginning of the interview, entirely normal. You will talk a bit quickly. You don't know these people. They're about to determine your next 3 to 5 years of your life. If they like you or if they don't like you. So it can be quite nervous. It can feel like it's so intense and the room is closing in on you and it's just too much. Just take a deep breath, honestly, and pause. Laugh if you feel nervous. It's very positive. When it's necessary, don't just randomly start laughing. I would be worried as well. But just take your time. Take your time. And answer the question that they're asking you. Fourth mistake that people make is not talking about their experiences positively. So maybe you've had an experience that you don't think is really that great, or, it's really small, or it was only a week, or it was only a day, or, I just did this, or I kind of did that. No, everything you've done is important. Okay, everything. And being able to communicate why when you did something, it was transferable / is transferable. There's a skill in being able to identify the skills. So it might actually just take a moment for you to sit down before the interview and think about all of your experiences or examples that you may want to use in an interview setting, and think about what positives can I take from that, first of all, and how can I translate that into the job that I want? How can I translate that into displaying that experience is a meaningful contribution and translation to why I would be a fantastic apprentice at your company? Didn't that sound convincing? Right. Next and the last one is, again, on communication, but poor structure when communicating. And this is, again, using the words from the person who you're interviewing with. He was so wise. He explained to one of the candidates, it sounded like there were really good things in the answers that you were giving, but it sounded like soup. Like there was just so much going on in there. And it would be far better if your answer was focused to answer that question, rather than talking about this experience and that experience and this experience and that experience. When you're talking about an issue, or, tell me about a time when. Those questions, I am begging you, Please use the STAR technique. Situation, task, action, result. You will at 9 times out of 10 sound like the superhero in your own story. It makes you sound confident. It sounds like you have the situation under control. And like one of the most important things that I didn't realize as an interviewer is that sometimes when students had been telling me a story, they hadn't been clear on, you know, certain things, or they were using acronyms that they're aware of, but maybe the person they're talking to isn't aware of, or they don't understand the scenario that you've resolved. So you can talk about what happened in a way that's so, there's a lack of detail there. And so your interviewer can't follow along the story in the same way that you desire to communicate it. All of this is practice. Like you do need to practice interviewing. Don't go into that apprenticeship interview and this is the first time you've ever done it. Please practice with someone who has a job. I really think it's important. You can practice with your friends, your age mate friends. Practicing with someone who has a job is important because they will have actually gone through an interviewing process, even if it's their one and only interviewing process or they've been doing it for ages. Practice with your teachers, speak to your careers department and tell them that you really need to practice interviewing before this date. How many times can you practice? Give them the job description, give them the company, and tell them that here are some questions that you can ask me. Think about things on the spot, because in as much as they can help you, they probably will need some direction in order to know what questions to ask. Even if they're not an apprentice, it can be really, really helpful just to get that experience. So those are 5 mistakes to avoid when doing your apprenticeship interview. Guys, can you tell I'm starting to get tired now? I haven't eaten and I'm hungry. I hope this was helpful. I am sending you all my love and I'll see you in the next video. Happy detailed!